So I'm gonna try to do this one just off the cuff. I just got done with the shower, was thinking about it a little bit, but I wanted to be as real and honest as possible. And I was thinking about like where to start this, and it just made sense to go chronologically. So my like, I guess so I'll sort of start with that. And I was trying to really think about the first really strong feelings that I experienced. I mean, can you remember the first strong feelings that you experienced, especially or more specifically for the feeling types? Like, I'm having a really hard time with it. Like, a really, really hard time with it. Like, if I go back to 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, I remember sometimes, like, I remember crying. And I guess, if somebody asked me, I would be like, oh, I cried a lot when I was young. And I don't think it actually was a lot. Like, a lot to me was maybe once a month or something like that. Maybe twice a month, but I never. So I thought about that. I was thinking about that. Like, okay, so how do I express all this in this video? What exactly do I say? What do I really want the heart of the subject matter to be? So I thought, like, definitely think back to your evolution of your feelings and your emotion and that part of yourself. And I remember, like, when I say remember, like just a minute ago in the shower, I remember thinking to myself, like, okay, so I remember you cried a lot as a kid, which I don't actually think was a lot. So what made you cry? And as I thought about it, it was always frustration. It was just this, I felt emotionally constipated is maybe the best way I could explain it. And so I didn't know what I was feeling. I didn't know how to express it. I just knew that I had feelings that I couldn't explain or express, and so that would create a lot of frustration and just a lot of like I would, I wouldn't know how to deal with it, so I'd like rip up a book or something. And then if I jump forward, I was in a relationship like 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So I was in a relationship for 6 years, and I remember feeling strong emotions in that relationship. We were like really close. It was like a teenage couple. I would like take the bus to. I didn't drive yet. I would take the bus and pick her up from school. I was 15, she was 13. We were like 18 months apart. She was still in middle school. So I would take the bus to her middle school and I would walk her home. And we had like a really sweet relationship. And that was probably some of my first real, like, sort of hands-on experiences with emotions, like jealousy, which I don't recall really feeling up until that point. Now, I'm not saying I didn't feel these things, like low-key. Somebody takes my toy and I want my toy back, or somebody punches me and I'm angry. Like, but I'm talking about stuff that is of any memorable, like, anything. I just don't remember a lot. I remember being excited about things. I remember my dad, like, getting a pellet gun when I was a little kid, and I remember being really excited about shooting it. Like, I just wanted a pellet gun and I wanted to shoot it. Like, I remember things like that, but I don't remember any super positive or negative experiences. I remember discomfort, but that's not the same. And it's weird. Like, you were seeing me try to process this as we go. Like, I remember being like 6 or 7 and going to summer camp. It was this camp called Camp Kashina in Wisconsin. And salamanders, which I fucking loved as a kid. I was obsessed with like reptiles and frogs and turtles and stuff. They would get into the camp pool, and then when they would clean out the filter, they'd dump out the filter and there'd be salamanders in it. So I would try to figure out how to sneak away from everybody. I would tell them I had to go to the bathroom. I would tell them anything that I could. And try to get to where they would dump out this basket so I could like sift through the leaves and look for salamanders. But that was like more of an anxious feeling. I was like more like, I would just be like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, like more of like a ADHD. So again, I don't think, and I'm really and truly asking those of you that lead with feeling, so the F types, I'm really and truly asking, what your relationship with feeling is like, because like I said, the strongest feelings that I really ever remember, that would, I just anxiety or frustration. Those were kind of the two, and those aren't even, I don't even think those are feelings really. So now, as I've gotten older, it's interesting because, let's assume that we're born with, me as an ENTP, let's assume I'm born with full use of NE and basically TI. So I'm 5 years old. By the time I'm like aware of shit, like I have full use of NE TI. By the time I'm 20, I'm very fluent in them, and I'm starting to get into my FE. Yeah, I don't know. I guess like, that empathy part, like if I think back, I could tell you that emotion and feeling were a driving factor behind decisions that I made. Like I am very, very, very aware of like not wanting to hurt people, and I'm also very aware of having hurt people because I was unaware that something I was saying or doing would or could hurt somebody. So now if we fast forward a whole lot, like I remember having kids really changed me and, helped me perceive things so differently. And I remember my son was born in January and 9/11 happened in September. And I remember like crying about it. Like I remember it really, really choking me up. And it was the visuals. It was all the things I pictured. It was, it was because it was so relatable to me. And so at that point, I think like I'm starting to experience emotions probably like an INFJ maybe did from a very, very young age, where I actually like can feel it. I don't think, I think an INFJ is probably ramped up. They're at like, they got the volume knob at 11, and at that point in life, I'm probably at a 3, or something. But I will talk about like how I process something that feels emotional to me. There is there's a video on YouTube, and it is a 911 call of a young girl whose brother had just killed herself. And it's fucking heart-wrenching to watch. I actually think I have a comment on it that's gotten like 1,000 likes, essentially where I said, if this didn't make you cry, you're already dead inside. Because I was listening to a video, I didn't know what to expect, and there was this moment where I like, it was, I guess, the crux or the climax of sort of the sound bite. It wasn't actually a video, it was just a video with sound, and it just made me start bawling like instantly. And there's a video, Brian McKnight, what is that song, Back at One, is that what it's called, Back at One? That video is heartbreaking, like completely made me cry. And there was a tragedy, there's been a lot of them, but there was a tragedy in Colorado a few years back, the one at the theater. And I'll look at something in the moment, and I'm completely disconnected from it. I just do what needs to be done, and it doesn't matter how intense or how emotional of a situation. I just do what needs to be done, and then in the aftermath, like I'll take my time to process and hurt or cry or whatever I need to do. And with that shooting, when it bothered me a lot. Like, it really bothered me. And so I did, like, I took the time later, I read up on it, it like made me tear up. I'll look up people, like, just to, sort of honor them and be able to put a face and, like, tear up at the life that, was taken. And it's weird because what gets me so emotional, and again, like, I one time read that ENTPs and INFJs, because of the shared FE and how we process with our intuition, we're like the only two types that kind of experience feelings the same way. But I think it was so emotional for me because I could smell it. I could smell the situation happening, and there were three boyfriends that died shielding their girlfriends, and I like just empathize with the whole thing. I was able to just sort of put myself there and think about what the experience must have been like. But then the T in me, is like, man, it's fucked up. Those dudes, like, probably die for some chick they were dating for like a year. She's, like, married, ain't even thinking about that motherfucker, probably got kids and whatever. So, I then have that flip side. And, that's weird to me because I definitely lead with the thinking and always go back to the thinking. So it's sort of a thinking, feeling, more thinking versus a feeling, thinking, more feeling. But with that said, like, I've definitely also made emotional decisions that have been frustrating or that I've regretted. I've acted out or done things that I wasn't proud of because I was responding emotionally versus actually thinking it through and using some wisdom and doing the right thing. And, some of that's age. And some of these topics, I think that's one of the reasons MBTI is so tricky. Some of these topics merge a bunch of things. For example, I am Enneagram 7W8. So I kind of have that 8, that Enneagram 8 sort of, if you're in my circle, you're in my circle, overly protective nature. So it's hard for me to sometimes separate that protective side of me from, this old school side of me, from this gender side of me being a male, from this, like, societal idea of what I maybe should be or whatever programming came from that, from, my upbringing, from, I think it gets very hard to really go in there with a scalpel and be like, okay, this is related to this is related to that. Although, we fecklessly try, right? And what can we do? But, so I don't know if that, I never know if my videos are particularly productive. I just sometimes talk about what's on my mind. I hope they're insightful to somebody. I hope they offer some clarity to somebody. I can most certainly say that pretty much anybody that's in my life will say that I am both the sweetest person they know and the coldest person they know. I've definitely been described as both. I definitely feel things. Like, I think sometimes there's this sort of battle between the thinkers and the feelers of, we think that feelers don't think and they think that we don't feel, and nothing could be further from the truth. It's just, we respond differently. Another good area to highlight that is parenting. Like, I've made parental decisions when it comes to disciplining my kids or setting a boundary or something with my kids that have actually made me cry. Like, it's given me upset stomach. It's literally made me feel sick to my stomach, and it's made me tear up, and it's made me just want to cave because it makes me feel so uncomfortable. And I'm assuming that this is the discomfort that INFJs feel, and probably a catalyst for a lot of the decisions they make that are nice versus kind. In other words, like, the decisions they make that, a kind decision would not necessarily be comfortable, but be, more selfless or more the right thing to do with, you know, use of wisdom and so on, whereas nice is like uncomfortable, and you know, you don't want to experience that discomfort, so you make a decision in the name of protecting somebody else when really you're not, you know, you're not helping anybody. But I've definitely felt that, you know, with my kids. It's like I want to cave, and there's a reason that there's the term tough love, and it's accurate as fuck. Like, you know, it's hard, man. It is hard to love somebody so much that you're willing to do what's in their best interest at your own discomfort to that degree, and follow through with it. I mean, you know, I've definitely experienced giving my kids a punishment, and then after the fact just wanting to lighten up and be like, oh my god, like, how can I give them an out? Like, you just want to find an out for them, but you don't want to lose face, you know, and seem too soft. So you know, it's like, fuck. It's like trying to be God and having Hail Marys on your side. You know, you want to be like, all right, do 10 Hail Marys and we'll let it go. So I think that's it. If you have any specific questions, feel free to ask. Hopefully, you know, my hope is that even if I'm not able to articulate a thought particularly well, my hope is that just being able to watch the video and, you know, seeing me kind of toil with the experience and so on, helps. Another thing I want to touch on really quick is, because I get the comments a lot about like being bitter and being angry and being this, and like these assumptions around some of the things I say. And there's two sides to that. One is the ENTP devil's advocate sort of thing, where, you know, I'll talk about something and, you know, I won't necessarily wholeheartedly believe in it, but it's something I've seen, observed, experienced, whatever. I'll talk about it and, you know, sort of brainstorm off of everybody else. And a lot of times these are well-processed ideas. Sometimes I'll certainly change my mind. Sometimes it's better processed than that. And, you know, the video will just sort of confirm what I'm thinking. But the other thing is, like, I think it's this perception. It's this mistake that we make as people of attaching our emotions, feelings, perceptions, whatever, to somebody else's words, actions, blah blah blah. So I think that a lot of it is that, because I can say that as an ENTP, I don't hold grudges. I hold myself super accountable for everything that happens in my life. There's nothing that anybody has ever done to me that I haven't viewed as tuition paid on an experience learned. I don't, like, anybody that's ever wronged me has my full forgiveness, and not just my full forgiveness, but I would, you know, I'm not, there's no bitterness driving things. I would help them in any way that I could as a human, because ultimately I want to see everybody do well. I want everybody to do well. I want everybody to thrive. Life is so fucking hard already. Like, there's no reason to be making it worse for each other. There's no reason to be holding grudges. There's no reason to be frustrated with people over shit. You know, and I can't even think of much. I mean, I can't think of many wrongs, you know, anybody's done me. Yeah, I can't think of, you know, it's funny because I think of trivial stuff. I remember being 16 and saving up all this money and getting a really nice car stereo and laying in bed one night watching 21 Jump Street and hearing some noise outside, and some people broke into my car and were like running off with my stereo. And, like, you know, I'm trying to think of wrongs people have done to me, and I'm just like, it doesn't, you know, it doesn't. I mean, if that person was here right now, I'd just be like, whatever, dude. I hope you got something cool with the money. Like, I just don't. I assume that other people learn from their behavior, and if they don't, I assume that life and karma will give them what the tools they needed, and put them down a path that, you know, they ultimately end up learning. And yeah, I just don't like, I just can't relate to it. You know, I can't relate to somebody else being upset with me for my choices. If I was, here's a good example. So I had this girlfriend. She was a ISFP. And ISFP. Yep, she was an ISFP. The only ISFP I have any real experience with. And I mean, she was like, she was good to me. Like, I remember for our anniversary, she dropped me off at work, and she like came home. She used my car. She went back to my apartment and like cooked me duck. She made me this like awesome dinner. She went to TJ Maxx and got plates and like special glasses. Like, she was really sweet to me. We had a pretty good relationship, all in all. But she was like having way more sex than I was, which, you know, that can be problematic in a relationship. And on top of that, she was using my car. She dropped me off at work, go over to her ex's house and fuck them, and then like then come pick me up from work, right? So I mean, it was like sort of fucked up, but whatever. Like, you know, I like I'm still on talking terms with her. I'm not upset with her. Like, at the time, I like pulled some shit, and like, you know, I sort of got her back, so to speak. Not sexually, like I didn't do like fuck her sister or anything like that, but so I sort of got her back. So we sort of both did each other wrong. But I remember going to see her when I was getting ready to move out of Wisconsin to Arizona. Like, I went to see her and say bye to her and, you know, get some closure and stuff. And I, like, you know, at the time, that was definitely a strong emotion moment. But, like, I remember busting her because, like, her boyfriend, I don't think she definitely didn't have a cell phone at the time. Like, I think her boyfriend had my home phone number. She would call and talk to him while I was at work. So I remember, like, busting her because he called, and then, you know, it turned into a fuck you kind of a match between him and I. And, you know, he was like, wow, whatever. And then, you know, he was like, I've been fucking your girl. And she, like, admitted to it. And, you know, even then, like, I don't even fucking honestly remember losing sleep over it. Like, I just remember being like, whatever, like, better I find out now, you know? Like, I'm not married to her. Like, whatever. Like, why the fuck would I want to be with that kind of girl anyway? Good riddance. Not that I didn't hurt. Like, I definitely hurt, and I definitely missed her. But even then, I was able to process, like, I missed the loss of the potential. You know, I liked the potential. I liked all the things we were going to do together. So I missed the loss. One more. Oh my God, this is now 23 minutes long. So apparently I have a complicated relationship with emotions and feelings. But my grandpa, loved the motherfucking shit out of my grandpa. He was a badass. He, like, was in a tank in, like, what was it? Sherman's 8th or Sherman's 3rd Infantry. Whichever one was the one that, like, you know, was supposed to be the badasses. Like, he was blown up in a tank. Dude was just cool as fuck. He was an awesome grandpa. And I think about it, I honestly think he might have been an ISFP too. He was really, really artsy. He just grew up in a time where you were just a fucking man, and you welded and you beat shit up if you had to, and you went to war. But we had a super close relationship. My middle name is his name. I passed that on to my son. I liked him that much, and he was that influential in my life. And when he died, every time I had seen him, the prior probably, probably 6 years prior. So let me think. I moved out of Milwaukee in '97. He died in 2003. So for the 6 years, every time I saw him before that, I would leave him, and I would remember the last words I said to him. I would remember as many details as I could, and sometimes I would tear up on my way home, just a little. And like, I'd realize it was probably the last time I was going to see him, and I'd see him again, and it would happen again. And you know, I'd see him again, and I'd remember to ask him some stories. He'd tell me about, you know, calling back home from Piccadilly Circle or whatever. But when he died, I refused to go to his funeral, and it caused some problems amongst my family. I mean, not a big deal, but it definitely caused some problems, like that I wouldn't go to his funeral. But I remember I still have this shirt. Like, I got some of his clothes after he died. I still have one of the shirts, like the last shirt I ever saw him in. I remember I have a video. I remember going to the store and getting him a battery for his camera with him. I remember the last thing I ever said to him. I remember him as my grandpa, and I didn't want to dishonor him by spending the time, effort, energy, and money to go see him when he was dead, when if I had those resources, I would have done it while he was alive. So it's sort of that logic balancing out emotion sort of thing that I think I toil with, and I'm trying to express in this 26-minute long video. So if you watch this, fuck, I don't know what to say. Like, I don't know if you got a problem or what, but I really would love to hear your comments down there. I'd love to hear how this shit pans out to you, how you feel, how you experience it, and so on. And yeah, that's it. I'm done.